I've already got some movement in this piece. Where my eye flows, it's traveling around the paper. All right? I'm going to make my marks for this piece individual marks. I am not going to color it in solid. I'm going to come down to this and I'm going to start playing around with that movement. I'm going to be very aware of how I apply my mark. These marks are also going to train my eye. It's going to direct my eye where I need to go. So as I do this, I'm adding a layer of these orange marks just in the tree alone. I've just got my base coat down. I'm going to add a little bit of green to this piece. Now I want to go in between the orange. It's okay if I go on top of it at times. It's okay if it blends a little bit together. That's completely okay. But now I'm going to start getting more of that impressionistic style. I can make a little bit of longer lines, but I'm not just sitting here randomly putting down dots. I'm really thinking about the placement of where I put all of my mark. Marking is a huge component to the thought process, to the look of the piece, to your composition. I'm being aware to be careful. I'm trying not to make a mess out of my drawing. Once again, when you see my drawing, you see that you can see my outline and pen. That's for you as a student to be able to see what I'm doing. But yours will be in pencil. You probably won't even see your pencil line when you're all done. Maybe I come back in with another color. This time I'm going to come back in with a little bit of pink. I want to see how that turns out. That's not bad with the pink on there. Probably not my favorite. But since I started with it, I'm going to continue. I may add a little more black to some parts, just to give it a little bit of a definition. Don't want to add too much black. It'll muddy it up really quick. So I'm going to add think of it, it's kind of like a shadow defining areas. Starting to give a little bit of definition to the piece. This is not a race. I'm going to come back in with some of my colors that I was working with before. Maybe a little more orange. Now, if you wanted to make yourself a landscape in space, you could do that if you want. Just remember, it's land. I don't want to see Martians in there, but I don't mind a space one. Sometimes kids want to do an underwater scene. That's fine, but I don't want to see just water with things swimming in it. First of all, we don't want to see anything swimming in it. It would have to be the land, as if a submarine was looking at the bottom of the ocean. That's what you're going to have to take in consideration when you're making these pieces. Notice I'm starting to make some areas a little thicker, a little thinner with my line. And I'm going to continue to play with that as I put together my piece. How am I going to work through this? I'm letting the piece of artwork take on a life of its own. I'm starting to let the piece tell me what needs to happen. And that's okay. We have a plan, but it's just a plan. It's an idea. We can deviate from that plan. We can deviate from those ideas. We just have to be concerned about our time management and getting everything done. There we go. Kind of liking that. Now, there's nothing wrong with practicing on a piece of scratch paper. If you want to practice, go right ahead. I encourage it. Understand, though, that we only have so much material. We don't want to use up all of our oil pastels on our practice. Notice how I'm using this to make my marks and how I'm using this to color in. I'm even going back on top of it with my oil pastel and giving it a blending quality to the piece. I can use the oil pastel to blend. Don't use your fingers. Don't use your fingers. Don't use a separate piece of paper. Use the material. Blend the oil pastel. The mark is extremely important. I really like how that yellow comes out of there. Or not that yellow, that orange. Maybe I should give some yellow to the piece. I don't know. Notice how the direction at which I put down the oil pastel. It keeps giving more and more movement and more direction to the pieces as I use them. Keep your work area clean as best you can. I know that can be hard sometimes using oil pastel, but that's okay. Just do the best you can. Get a little bit messy. Make sure you apologize to your guardians. They're not going to like it too much, having a really messy, oily house. If this stuff gets on your clothes, it may not come out because it's oil, right? I'm only using the black to define the area. I'm not going crazy with that black. The black can turn really muddy really quick, and we want to be aware of how different colors affect that composition. What am I doing to it? What's going on with it? How's that green going to change the look of my piece? A little more of that orange. I think it looks like almost like a fire down below. Reminds me of fall. Fall's one of my favorite times. All the dead leaves falling to the ground. I think that gives you the idea of what you need to do. For this tree branch, I'm going to add some traditional colors like a brown to it. Just a little bit of brown. I'm going to come back in. Give myself some whites. my white pastel. You can add any color you want to yours. But notice how the coloration changes and the marks tend to change as I layer the white on top of that brown. Going into my other drawing, it's okay when I go on top of the leaves a little bit with this. See how it changes in there? Don't be discouraged. I mean, in the beginning, you start making this and people think it's not immediately good. Well, it's going to change. It's going to work. Hold this together. And I keep going around the piece itself as it evolves. This will take you quite a while to get through this entire drawing. Now I'm going to just do a little bit of orange down below here, just like before. Give myself an idea where these branches come in. Being aware of my movement on this piece. Got a nice look coming up through there. And I want to finish it off with that. I will continue to do this type of marking on all of my areas. I will change up the coloration where I have a path, where I have a plant, where I have land. You can have water in here. But I want you to think about something else right now. I want to think about the sky. I want to think about this area. So what am I going to do to it? I'm going to have some blue in the sky, and I got to think about Van Gogh's Starry Night. How did Van Gogh treat his sky? He had lots of movement. So I'm going to try doing some movement myself. And I am going to sit here and go, which way is the movement happening? The movement is happening in a circular movement. So my sky, I'm going to make marks in the sky, much like Van Gogh did for Starry Night. I notice I'm starting to give myself some shape, making small marks, and giving myself a pattern, giving myself direction. Now for me, I feel I'm pretty happy with the way that that movement is happening, and I can see throughout my entire piece how the eye will travel around it. And I'm going to treat the sky the same way that I was treating the marks within that tree. So if I sit here and I'm going to give a little bit of blue to the piece, and just like I used the dark black here, I'm going to use the dark blue. I'm going to start off with that first though. Make my edges a little bit darker. Just putting a little bit. I can always add more. I can always add more. I want to still see a separation between this air movement and this air movement. So I'm going to make it a little darker right here so it doesn't get in the way, so there's a contrast between the two. And I'm going to begin to come in with my white. Notice how I'm blending it. Notice how it's becoming different. I'm using the white as a blending tool. And there's still some blue on my white crayon, which is giving it a nice coloration in the background there. It's giving it a nice tint. Tint is white added to any color. When I added black to here, I was adding a shade. I'm starting to shade the work with the black. Well, you don't have to use blue and white on your sky, but I'm using it on mine. And I will continue to do this coloration in all these different spots. For now, I'm going to end this demonstration, and we're going to see some of the students' work where they've completed the entire drawing.